Good morning/afternoon, everyone. We often talk about willpower and tenacity as if they're traits you either have or don't, but that's not how it works. Today, I want to show you, not just tell you, that willpower is trainable. Tenacity is a system, and if you understand the underlying mechanisms in your brain and body, you can build both like a muscle. Let's start with something fundamental. Willpower isn't just a matter of mindset or motivation, it's deeply biological. At its core, willpower relies on the function of specific neural circuits in the brain, primarily the prefrontal cortex. This is the area just behind your forehead responsible for decision making, impulse control, and planning. When you're exercising self-control, whether that's resisting a distraction, enduring discomfort, or pushing through a difficult task, you're relying heavily on this region. But like any muscle, the prefrontal cortex can get fatigued. That's why willpower feels strong in the morning and weaker in the evening, or why it's harder to stay disciplined after a long day of decision making. There's also a key role played by the neurotransmitter dopamine, not in the way people usually think of it, as a reward chemical, but as a signal of motivation and expectation. Dopamine doesn't just spike when we achieve something. It ramps up when we anticipate progress. In fact, it's the pursuit of goals that activates dopamine pathways, not just the accomplishment. This has profound implications. It means that willpower isn't about grinding through with brute force, it's about shaping your brain to associate effort with forward movement, even before the payoff comes. Finally, willpower is impacted by your physiological state. Poor sleep, low blood sugar, high stress, all of these directly reduce the brain's capacity to engage the circuits required for self-control. That's not a character flaw, it's a metabolic reality. Understanding this biology doesn't make us weaker, it gives us a blueprint. When you learn how to support and train these systems through rest, focused training, and controlled challenge, you begin to treat willpower not as a mystery, but as a skill. And skills can be improved. Deliberate cold exposure is one of the most direct and effective tools for building tenacity because it provides a controlled way to activate and adapt your stress response system. When you expose your body to cold, whether it's a cold shower, ice bath, or even immersing your hands or face in cold water, your body releases norepinephrine and epinephrine. These chemicals heighten alertness, increase focus, and create a sense of urgency in the brain. But here's where it becomes powerful. If you can remain mentally calm while your body is experiencing that elevated state of stress, you're training your nervous system to stay regulated under pressure. This is key because the same systems that react to cold are activated during psychological stress deadlines, public speaking, conflict, or physical fatigue. The body doesn't necessarily distinguish between sources of stress. It only knows how to respond. So, by repeatedly entering a mildly stressful environment like cold water and choosing to stay, you're increasing your capacity to stay composed during any kind of challenge. The benefits are both mental and physical. You're literally improving your ability to tolerate discomfort without triggering panic, quitting, or emotional overload. Additionally, cold exposure teaches you how to shift your internal state through conscious control of breath and attention. You'll find that controlling your exhale, relaxing your face, and focusing your thoughts away from escape can significantly ease the experience. That's not just mental toughness, it's neuroplasticity in action. You're rewiring the brain-body connection to prefer resilience over retreat. This doesn't mean everyone needs to plunge into an ice bath daily, but even 30 seconds of cold water at the end of a shower can start to shift your stress threshold. The goal isn't suffering for its own sake. It's learning to observe discomfort, remain engaged, and extend your control. That's tenacity, and cold is one of the most direct ways to train it. Dopamine plays a central role in shaping our willpower and tenacity, not because it makes us feel good after achieving something, but because it drives us to keep going in pursuit of goals. Most people misunderstand dopamine as simply the pleasure chemical. In reality, It's about motivation and anticipation. It energizes behavior and sustains effort by signaling that a reward is possible, not guaranteed. What matters most is when dopamine is released and what it becomes associated with. If you only feel satisfaction when you cross the finish line, when you get the grade, the promotion, or the external validation, you're conditioning your brain to crave only outcomes. That makes effort feel like a burden, and quitting becomes easier when rewards are delayed. But if you train your mind to experience small surges of satisfaction during effort itself by internally framing struggle as progress, telling yourself this is the process, you actually start to rewire the reward circuitry. You can literally teach your brain to crave the climb, not just the summit. This matters because willpower isn't about one big act of resistance. It's about repeating small, effortful actions in the absence of immediate reward. That repetition is fueled by dopamine, but only if it's being released in the right way. People who develop tenacity often unconsciously tap into this. They focus less on the end result and more on the rhythm and integrity of showing up again and again. That mindset creates a stable, self-reinforcing dopamine system. There's also a cost to over-rewarding or constantly stimulating yourself with external dopamine hits like junk food, scrolling, or instant gratification. These activities hijack the same dopamine circuits and dull your brain's response to real effort-driven progress. That's why part of building tenacity means strategically managing pleasure, not eliminating it, but spacing it out so that your motivation system stays responsive to hard work. The bottom line is this: the most effective way to increase willpower is not to fight for the finish line, but to find ways to enjoy and value the struggle. When you do that, your dopamine system becomes your ally, not your obstacle. There's a window each day when your brain and body are naturally primed for deep effort, a period when your neurochemistry, alertness, and focus align to support higher cognitive and physical output. This grit window isn't the same for everyone, but for most people, it occurs within the first few hours after waking, especially if you've moved your body or gotten some sunlight. During this time, cortisol and adrenaline levels are naturally elevated, which enhances alertness and motivation. Your brain is more capable of pushing through challenging tasks, and the circuits involved in focus and persistence are more responsive. Training your willpower during this window makes a significant difference because you're working with your biology, not against it. If you consistently schedule effortful activities, whether it's a workout, writing session, studying, or skill, building during this peak period, you strengthen the neural pathways involved in persistence. It's not just about productivity. It's about creating a daily ritual of deliberate challenge when your system is most ready for it. That repetition wires tenacity into your identity. This doesn't mean you should avoid hard tasks at other times of the day, but starting your day with focused, challenging work conditions your mind to associate effort with routine, not avoidance. It also reduces the likelihood of decision fatigue. As the day goes on, the prefrontal cortex responsible for self-control becomes less efficient. By front-loading hard effort, you're protecting your willpower from being drained by trivial decisions or distractions. What's more, there's a feedback loop that forms when you meet early day resistance with action. Dopamine and other neurochemicals are released when you complete difficult tasks, reinforcing a sense of control and capability. That positive reinforcement increases your motivation for the next task. Over time, this rhythm becomes a habit, and the resistance to starting hard things fades. So, if you want to build willpower and tenacity, don't wait for the perfect moment to feel inspired. Identify your grit window and protect it. Use it to do something hard on purpose. That's where the growth happens. Your visual system is one of the most direct pathways into your state of mind, and learning to control your visual focus can significantly enhance your ability to sustain willpower. This isn't metaphorical, it's neurological. The brain's attentional systems are tightly linked to how and where you direct your gaze. When your eyes are darting around, scanning your environment, your brain is in a more reactive, distracted state. But when you narrow your focus, visually, literally fix your gaze on a single point, you engage circuits in the brainstem and forebrain that increase cognitive control and reduce susceptibility to distraction. This has powerful implications for tenacity. Before beginning a difficult task, take 30 to 60 seconds to fix your gaze on a non-moving target, a spot on the wall, an object on your desk, even your thumb held in front of you. This simple act signals to the brain that it's time to enter a task-oriented state. It shifts you from a broad, scanning mode, which is great for creativity or threat detection, into a narrow, goal-directed mode optimized for sustained effort. You're essentially switching gears from passive to active, from reactive to intentional. This isn't just a mental trick. It's grounded in ancient neural systems that evolved for survival. When early humans hunted or tracked, they used this same type of focused visual anchoring to maintain pursuit and block out irrelevant stimuli. We still have access to that same circuitry, and we can tap into it consciously. By narrowing your visual field, you dampen noise in the system, internal and external, and sharpen the brain's engagement with the task at hand. This kind of focus also helps regulate the autonomic nervous system. When your visual field is stable, your brain interprets that as safety, which helps reduce unnecessary background anxiety. That creates more cognitive space for effortful thinking and increases your capacity to stay with something hard, even when it's uncomfortable or frustrating. So while it might sound small, visual anchoring is a high-leverage tool. It primes your mind for discipline. It trains the link between attention and intention. And most importantly, it gives you a repeatable protocol to increase willpower, not by hoping for motivation, but by creating the right conditions for focus. Breath is one of the few physiological systems we can control voluntarily, and it gives us direct access to the state of our nervous system. When you're struggling to maintain willpower, whether it's during physical strain, emotional discomfort, or mental fatigue, your breathing pattern reflects that. It often becomes shallow, erratic, or even held altogether. This isn't just a symptom of stress, it's part of what amplifies it. The good news is that by deliberately changing your breathing pattern, you can shift your internal state in real time, and in doing so, restore access to the mental resources required for tenacity. One of the most effective breathing techniques for this purpose is the physiological sigh. This is a natural reflex you've likely done without realizing. 2 short inhales through the nose, followed by a long exhale through the mouth. It rapidly reduces levels of carbon dioxide in the bloodstream and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which brings calm and clarity. What makes this powerful in the context of willpower is that it can be used immediately, on demand, in moments of high stress or temptation, to prevent your internal state from derailing your focus and effort. This control over your state matters because willpower isn't just about enduring, it's about regulating. When people quit or break down under pressure, it's often because their internal environment becomes too chaotic. They get overwhelmed not just by the task, but by the flood of emotional and physiological noise that accompanies it. Breath is the fastest lever you have to reduce that noise. With just 1 or 2 physiological sighs, you create a moment of internal stillness. And in that stillness, the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for conscious decision-making, comes back online. Using breath intentionally also builds self-awareness. The moment you notice your breath shifting, it's a cue that your system is being taxed. That awareness alone helps you intervene before stress becomes shut down. Over time, this process of noticing, breathing, and resetting becomes a skill one that allows you to stay engaged longer, recover faster, and return to effort with less friction. So, willpower isn't about being a stone wall. It's about learning how to restore composure under pressure, and nothing does that more quickly and effectively than breath. It's simple, it's free, and it's one of the most scientifically grounded tools we have for building real, resilient tenacity. In closing, willpower and tenacity are not traits you're either born with or without. They are trainable systems, rooted in biology, that respond to deliberate practice. When you understand how your brain and body actually generate effort, regulate focus, and recover from stress, you gain the ability to shape your internal state rather than be ruled by it. From leveraging cold exposure to build stress tolerance, to training your dopamine system to value effort, from anchoring your visual focus to using breath to regain control, each of these tools gives you more agency over your actions, especially when things get hard. The goal isn't to eliminate discomfort or force yourself through pain blindly. The goal is to develop a deep, repeatable ability to stay engaged when every part of you wants to quit, and to do so with clarity, composure, and consistency. Willpower is not magic. It's a practice. Tenacity is not toughness. It's precision. And once you stop waiting to feel ready and start training these systems on purpose, you'll find that grit isn't something you have, it's something you build. Every day, thank you.